Hi, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. I'm Kim Brown with Blumira, and we're here today to talk to you about 5 tools to make the most of your security budget. And just want to take a second to appreciate all of you for joining us. We know you have a lot of different things you can do with your time, and we're happy to have you here with us today to talk about this important topic. And today we've got our experts. We have Rafael Matón, founder and CEO of Judy Security. And Rafael has a great background, and I've had the awesome joy of being able to work with Rafael at past companies as well as here. We work as partners with Judy Security. And Rafael has an extensive background in IT sales and operations. And in March of 2019, took all of that background and knowledge of security industries and launched Judy Security with a mission to provide simple, smart, effective, and affordable cybersecurity solutions for small and medium businesses. And thanks for joining us, Rafael.
Thanks for having me today.
And we also have Bill Rayer, who is Blumira's own senior incident detection engineer. And Bill is a seasoned expert with over 10 years of experience, including having worked as a CISO. Bill joined us at Blumira from Disney after successfully creating a detection and response capability for their streaming services, including Disney Plus, ABC, National Geographic, and ESPN. Bill's led social engineering and penetration testing assessments for multiple organizations and has led several international incidents from start to close and remediation. At Blumira, he tracks potential threats across different platforms, automates threat detections, and we're just really happy to have him here on a webinar with us today. Thanks for joining, Bill.
Thank you very much, Kim.
Awesome. So today, the security landscape today for the small and medium-sized organization, and by that we're really talking about, anywhere up to say 1,000 to 2,000 employees at an organization. You're well versed in these challenges, and these are some of the things that maybe kind of keep you up at night. The team sizes tend to be smaller, of course, and in some cases you're working in a situation without dedicated security expertise. You've got different sets of complex tools, layering of security from various vendors, and really getting the value out of some of those tools can be a slow and manual process. And you've also got too many alerts. When we're looking at averaging about 10,000 alerts a day, how do you really separate the signal from the noise? So we know that we've got some of these challenges and more, and today we're going to talk a little bit more about those. So the first thing we want to talk to you about is the password manager. And I wanted to bring up this old XKCD image. I know many of you have probably seen this before. It just tells the story so beautifully of the situation that we have come to find ourselves in after, more than it says 20 years. It's an old slide. It's more than 20 years. And Bill, I think you had a couple of thoughts on this slide. I'm going to hand it over to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So the one thing that we know for sure is that attackers use breach credential pairs. That is, when one service that you've used is compromised, they collect these usernames and passwords, and they try them against other services that you may or may not use. And they call that technique credential stuffing. And so this slide points out one way to increase password complexity in a way that is more easier to remember. But the truth is we need to go above and beyond this because just having one single complex password doesn't solve the problem of issues like credential stuffing. We need to look at bigger, broader solutions. So one way to handle that is by using an individual password for each service you use. And to do that, you really need a password manager. And that can be something as simple as iCloud or 1Password. But there's new technologies which take some of the burden away from users using no password multi-factor authentication. And maybe Rafael, if you'd like to talk a bit about that with Judy Security.
Yeah, so I think, like you said, it shouldn't be hard. Technology has caught up. And we, as the industry, should be able to automate a lot of the things that have been sitting around for 20 years now with that technology. So you should, as a small and medium-sized company, now expect automation, including passwordless. You should not have to create an individual password for each system that you're logging in. Technology, like Bill said, and Judy has caught up, and her AI can create those passwords for you. But regardless of technology, this is an area where it's always been the easiest way to breach an individual or an organization. And so as you're looking at different technologies, as you're starting your journey maybe with a new password manager, just know that you should be to a point now in your research that it should be passwordless. That's the key takeaway. These 40 to 126 characters is not something that you should have to worry about. The system you pick should do it for you.
Yep, I entirely agree.
That's awesome. Thank you both. We've got some bullet points up here on the slides. And we're well familiar with the number of passwords. 70 to 80 actually just even seems like a joke now. I mean, if I look at my password list, I know I've got
Or like
exponential.
hundreds.
Yep.
And
it's
I
unfortunate.
mean, we're humans and we do tend to reuse. I remember years ago, I had a system where I was going to use the brand's color and the Sesame Street character color that corresponded to the brand's color in the password. Like I come up with this complex the system of how I was going to build a password for each site. And no, I gave up really quickly and started to use a password manager. But certainly when you're working with a team and supporting a team, you know, that you do end up with the exponential risks and the exponential concerns and support of, you know, what your users are going through. So definitely requires a consistent effort. And we've got a poll. We're really curious, especially as passwordless becomes more and more popular and we see organizations using it. We want to ask your, you know, your current situation. Are you passwordless? I'll give you a couple minutes to answer. And I'm not sure, can everyone see these results? Not sure, no, okay. I think we may have to, we'll give you another 5 seconds and then we'll close this up and share. Let's take a look at what we've got here. We're going to close up the poll and 72% say no, not a surprise. And planning to is 20%. We've got a 8% yes, and these numbers don't surprise me too much. I'm curious, Raphael or Bill, if you've got any comments you wanted to make on that, if you're surprised by this.
So I'd say I'm not surprised. It's a difficult problem to solve, and it's one of the areas that we actually wanted to focus on in this presentation because it's a difficult problem to start to action against and start to make progress toward. So I think, you know, later in the presentation we're going to talk about secure authentication, and we can dig in a little bit deeper into the implementation of a secure authentication as it applies to, you know, single sign-on and password management in general.
And I think most people, this is an area that, like you've said, we have hundreds of passwords. Maybe you've been using a technology for a couple of years. It could seem daunting that you have to move to something else that could be passwordless. So there again, automation is caught up. It should be an export import, as simple as that, and to whatever's new passwordless manager you're looking at. So
Awesome. Thank you. We are moving on. We told you we had 5 different tools we wanted to talk to you about today. And so in addition to the password manager conversation, we want to talk about secure authentication. And I think everyone is familiar with some of the most common forms, and you see the image there of someone who's about to authenticate on their phone. Really wondered if, Raphael, you wanted to talk to us a little bit about what is secure authentication?
Yeah, so many of you are probably starting to come up on compliance frameworks or even cybersecurity insurance. The first word or acronym you'll hear is multi-factor. Many of us on this call have come from that world. It is a great way to protect your organization. You're basically authenticating between two different devices, your mobile phone and a laptop or a desktop. So it's definitely important. There again, it doesn't have to be the old way of doing multi-factor where you're typing in a 6-digit PIN into every application that you're trying to get into, which can cause fatigue on your users, which we all know is the first point of I'm not going to use it, and now there's a potential for a breach. So biometrics and 4-digit PIN are now available in a lot of the technology out there. And it shouldn't take much to roll it out that way, or take your current MFA and move it to that standard. Users don't want to type something in all the time. They just want to push a button, do the proper steps of authentication between two devices, and move on, right? We're all becoming milliseconds of our attention span. So the way that this has now been designed, and how we've all caught up, is that your password manager, single sign-on, MFA, passwordless, and biometric or 4-digit PIN should all work together, and it should be all out of the box. There should not be this heavy configuration, at least for small and medium-sized companies. I understand we all do, and maybe even some of you on the call in the enterprise, they have a different complexity and they have larger staff. But for those of you that are potentially rolling this out or have different portions of it, they should absolutely all work together, and it should be out of the box. That should be your standard baseline now as you're looking at different product lines that are out there.
Yep,
That's
and
great. And we're seeing some cyber insurance requirements as well.
Correct. I mean, if you work with an underwriter, they're all saying that you have to have multi-factor. It really is, the major bullet point for an underwriter, and that is interesting and okay, but you do have to have multiple layers of your security to be able to really protect your organization and meet all of their requirements. And single
Awesome.
sign-on is that way of having something follow you around and just log you into different applications real time without having to, again, authenticate every single time. And so that's how that single sign-on password MFA world works together.
Awesome. And Bill, I think you had some thoughts, particularly as it relates to Lumira around secure authentication.
yeah, that's right. So the other piece of secure authentication that using a system like this, rather than having an individual account on each system, can solve is, the onboarding and offboarding of new employees. So when you have a new person start and you onboard them, you configure their access and their account. And then when they're offboarded, if you're using a single sign-on provider, it's basically a single button to offboard the person. And that avoids the problem of having employees that may no longer be with your organization that have active access, which can definitely get you in trouble with regulatory compliance, and it definitely diminishes security overall. So wins all around for focusing on secure authentication.
Bill, I feel like when we spoke before, you mentioned healthcare as a, kind of a specific use case for the secure auth.
Yeah, that's right. So I guess, so if you're thinking about something like MFA, right, and you have a help desk situation and a user needs a password reset, because they're not sure what their password is, or they can't log into some system, a help desk could, in theory, still send a push notification to the user's device to validate them, alleviating your help desk from having to store PII to validate that user. So this is just one more way to minimize the data that you're storing and collecting and having to spread out. And so it's just one more way to reduce the footprint and the risk of having a cyber event.
That's great. Thank you. So after secure authentication, we are going to move into DNS filtering, number 3 of 5. And I'm actually going to pass it right over to you, Bill, to talk about how that can provide a more secure user experience.
Sure. Yeah. So DNS filtering in general can provide a better user experience, or a more secure user experience by filtering out things that we know are malicious. So I guess a great example is there's a DNS service called Quad9. And essentially Quad9 is a consortium that will automatically provide some filtering. The problem with Quad9, which is basically all nines of the DNS server, is you have no control. So because you have no control over what's filtered and what's not filtered, while it's a free solution, it's imperfect, right? Because you don't get to pick and choose what's blocked. And if something's blocked that you don't want blocked, then you have to email this free service and you get into this lengthy process, which isn't a great place to be. So services like Judy Security have a DNS filtering capability that can assist and alleviate this. And I guess I'll pass it to Raphael to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah, so think of it this way. Number one in the industry still is phishing. And so any of the URLs you're getting in your email or typing in the browser is going to potentially be a phishing or a ransomware. So as you're looking at technology, and again, thinking about users, we continue to rely on the industry that users are going to be trained and remember the 20 things before they click on an email or URL. That's no longer sustainable. So DNS filtering is looking at the domain library to make sure it's at blumera.com or at judysecurity.com when you get an email from me or Bill. If it's not, then that software will block it and let the user know you should not proceed. This is not a malicious link, it's a phishing attempt. And so because of how quickly we're moving through technology, sometimes you don't even know there's something piggybacking on a news article that you're looking at that is trying to download into your system, or that you're going to a site that you think is a bank account and you put in your login and it really wasn't. So this tool set, and yes, we're selfish, we're a little bit here, we built it into Judy, but there's many great tools out there. Again, should automate this for users and you as a small or medium-sized company, so that your users can just do their job and not worry about what they're clicking on, and then become that story we see in the press that a phishing attempt was done at a company because an employee just did their job. I mean, that's all they're doing, right? And again, technology has caught up and should be able to do this for them and block and remediate where necessary.
Yeah, and I guess I would just add on to that while we're talking about how DNS filtering in general can prevent things like ransomware. When there is a security event, having DNS logs and what endpoints are making queries to what we then learn are malicious DNS names, we have basically a graph that we can map back to go investigate and remediate. So just focusing on DNS in general and DNS logs and DNS filtering is a great win, and it's not too expensive, and it's well worth the effort that for the return you get from it.
Awesome. So we are going to move into talking about the fourth tool. And I do wanted to mention we've got some questions in the chat, and please continue to load those questions in there, and we will conclude kind of the formal presentation to all of you, our audience here. after we get through those 5 tools and talk a little bit about Blumira and Judy, and we'll answer all of the questions here. So please continue to toss those right into the chat there. And we are going to move on and talk about endpoint detection and response. And, this is a bit of a buzzword. You're seeing endpoint detection and response, or EDR, XDR, or MDR acronyms, kind of all over. XDR is really born out of dissatisfaction with the older technologies. So standalone EDRs and SIEMs really had their place in history, and we've moved beyond that now. EDR, or extended detection and response, is really only going to, endpoint detection and response is really going to provide coverage for endpoints. A SIEM is, traditionally collecting logs, providing little detection and response functionality. So when we look at an open XDR platform, and this is actually what Blumira offers now, you're combining the above and integrating so that you really end up with fantastic insight into endpoints, email, servers, the cloud networks, really everything, kind of your modern perimeter, if you will. And it includes automated response features, so you're quickly containing and blocking threats. And you can learn a lot more about this on our website. We actually have a few blog posts that really talk further about breaking this down and can kind of go beyond the 3x5 card view. So do encourage you to definitely, and we can probably even put a link into the chat here in a minute, but encourage you to check that out if you'd like more. But also wanted to move into the conversation around endpoint detection and response. And I know that both Bill and Raphael have some things to say. That will be the next slide. Bill's going to talk to us a little bit about when he was a CISO.
Sure, yeah. So one of the things that would keep me up at night when I was wearing that CISO hat was, how do we contain, if we just have typical antivirus on our endpoints and servers, what's my capability to contain if there's a big incident? And I ran into this, unfortunately, more than once. And so having a solution that's integrated with your endpoint detection capability, that's essentially your big red button that contain hosts that we know are infected, is really important. And that saves you time. That'll save the environment from being completely ransomware. And essentially, it gives you some satisfaction or some confidence that if you detect something bad within the environment, that you can stop it right away. So not for nothing, that's probably one of the biggest benefits that I see with XDR in general. And I know from Blumira's perspective, I think that's one of the biggest features our customers have asked us about. Yeah, I think as far as in going into log retention, so typically that means that we need to continue on and make sure that we're storing up to those compliance limits. So whether there's a 30, 90 day, 1 year, and getting to those out of the box solutions. And I guess Kim, if you want to pick it up.
Sure, yeah. And I know we had talked a bit about the challenges of crafting or tuning the solution there. So there's the idea that insecurity is anything really out of the box. I mean, I know there are times where Blumira customers, and I've worked at other companies with similar great track records, where the customers actually will reach out and say, we thought something was wrong because it was so easy to set up. For sure, this couldn't have been all of it. So yeah, I thought that was something interesting that I heard you mentioning, that when you were, in that CISO role, there's a lot of crafting and tuning that goes in. You really, out of the box is kind of a difficult thing, but I think Blumira and Judy both have solutions that are different from that and designed to, be much easier for lean IT teams.
That's right. Yeah. And just thank you for helping me jog my memory here. So at the time, we were using a solution called Alien Vault. And the issue with that solution in general was that we were using USM, which was just basically a single box deployment, feeding, between 500 to 750 endpoints to it. And no matter how we provisioned that device, it was just this big, complex, ugly thing. And it didn't have that big red button.
Yeah. And Raphael, I know you've watched the landscape really transform over time. And I wanted to see if you could talk to us a little bit about that and, your thoughts on endpoint detection and response.
Well, this is probably one of the oldest technologies in cybersecurity. And again, there's still many point products out there that put some form of restriction on this area, which is odd to, I know, Blumera and the Judy security team. And what I mean by that is when you purchase an endpoint, you should be able to use it on as many devices as you need to when you're doing your job. You should also not be limited to get the logs, like we saw one of the bigger companies last month. So just do your research. Again, it should protect for viruses, ransomware, MITRE ATT&CK, spyware, but be careful and make sure that you're not limiting yourself on number of devices, number of team members, or that if you do have a breach, you don't have all the tools you need for the remediation, right? Because that's the worst situation. And we're seeing that over and over in the industry is, oh, you didn't order the right level, so we can't help you with the breach, or you don't get the logs, or which is horrific at the time that you're being breached. So it is unfortunate, but yeah, with the way we designed Judy with Blumera, all of our logs do go into the Cloud SIEM XDR toolset, and allows our customers to get that full view without any limitations, which is why it's a great design and partnership.
Fantastic. Thank you. And we are going to move on to number 5, extended detection and response. I really wish that both words did not start with an E, because
Right.
as you heard me flub a little bit earlier, and I don't mind the acronyms in the way that I think a lot of people do, but yeah, I get tripped up on this one. So we just finished our number 4, of course, was endpoint detection and response. Number 5 is extended detection and response. And we've got the open XDR versus native XDR. In Blumera's case, we are using an open XDR. Integrations with your existing infrastructure are key there. And when it comes to automated response, we're really focused on time. We want that to be as quick as possible. And Bill, I think you maybe had a couple of things to say about that, especially given your role as an incident detection engineer at Blumera.
I mean, absolutely. So to me, we have these different systems, and you can sort of think of them like building blocks. So you've got a SIEM solution, which is your log aggregator and correlation engine. So it's the thing you send your logs to, and it has rules that tell you when something anomalous or something off baseline or something that matches a signature occurs. Then you have these SOAR-like systems, which basically connect to a SIEM and can essentially take action when something happens. And then you have systems that put that entire solution natively together and can take multiple actions. So I guess the difference between maybe a native XDR system might be a system like CrowdStrike, where you can have policies that say, for this CrowdStrike endpoint that's where something has happened, automatically contained based on this thing that happened, where a more open XDR solution like Blumera might find something, a correlated event that happens on a disparate system that's not related. So it may be a system like AWS or Azure or GCP, or maybe it's even on-prem or an endpoint. And so these systems are generally more open and more configurable, and basically play with more systems, and they're easier to configure. So I guess given the choice between the two things to focus on, it really depends on your footprint, but I can definitely see the benefit to to pursuing an open XDR strategy above just a single endpoint-driven strategy.
It's great background. Thank you. And with that, we are going to talk a little bit more about Blumira and Judy, and tell you some of the latest and greatest with what we're doing. So Blumira is an advanced detection, analysis, and guided response company. Really, we're making SIEM and XDR as easy as possible, particularly for organizations that may be running a lean IT team. All data is retained for 1-year standard. We're made for IT admins. We're really looking to give step-by-step instructions. So in the case where there isn't a lot of security on your bench, a lot of security expertise or background on your bench, we've got that covered to be that resource for you. And also very affordable for organizations in the medium landscape where, we're looking at around up to maybe 2,000 or so employees. And you can see some of our favorite bullet points here on the slide. Of course, really the time and resources saved is something that we hear again and again from our customers. Of course, improved threat detection, the reason for all of it, right? The security is solid. And that compliance and cyber insurance, as you've heard us mention again and again. And if you are coming from a compliance perspective, encourage you to check out our website for more information on that as well. We do have several blog articles, whether we're talking about HIPAA or PCI compliance, ISO. There's all kinds of information available on the website there for that. And I want to, we'll do a brief introduction to you, about Judy. So we have a great relationship with Judy Security, and I'll let Raphael here introduce you to his company. But I just wanted to mention, we're looking at with Judy really all-in-one protection. So data, passwords, devices, and Blumira integrates with Judy. And with that, I'll let you take it away, Raphael, and talk to us more about the integration and what you're doing.
Yeah, so real quickly, Judy is an all-in-one AI solution. So she is able to be that first level cybersecurity assistant, complementing existing teams or those where you don't have one. Each of these tools to the left, we've built from the ground up, enterprise grade, and able to just be deployed out of the box with the same level of technology or needs as you would see with a lot of those point products. Through our partnership with Blumira, all of Judy's logs flow into what we call Judy's Blue Team, where the Cloud SIEM and XDR work together. And then we complement those items with training or compliance if needed. So no gimmicks, easy to install, and unlimited devices per user. So we appreciate the partnership and allowing us to continue to tell the story of our journey and Judy Security.
Awesome. Thank you, Raphael. And now all of the questions we've gotten, and if you have more, please add them in here. Bill, I'm going to toss one over to you, and we may want to take this offline. Sorry, I didn't have a way to kind of give this to you in advance to tell me if you wanted to take this, but regarding offboarding a user account, and Warren, if you're still on, we may need a little more background here. Any idea if OIDC auth can support SCIM API for auto provisioning?
So I believe it can, but it's not something I want to definitely promise in the middle of the podcast without actually verifying and digging into documentation. It's sort of a complex question, and it's one of those things where you really have to work in the SSO space to probably have an immediate answer off the top of mind, but I can definitely follow up offline.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill. And we had another question, which is my question. Raise your hand in some way if you would like to follow up with us and do some kind of a demo with either Judy or Blumira or both. And you can just toss your name in the chat. As you know, we probably will follow up with you, even if you don't do that. But we'd love to, see anyone, kind of let us know. The demo is, worth 1,000 words, as they say, and you can do that in a short period of time. So would love to hear from anyone who'd like that. Thank you, Nicholas. We will be sure to follow up with you. And while I'm looking for those blog URLs that I promised, and I'll toss those into the chat here, I have a question, Bill, for you. I would like to go back to what is it about Blumira's XDR tool being based upon a SIM that's either different or similar to some of the other XDR tools out there that
That's
are
a
not
great
based
question.
on a SIM?
That is a good question. So I mean, of course, I'm going to talk to the positives of our platform, right? I guess the issue with many SOAR-tied XDR systems is that they come with these complex rule sets. And some of them try and make it easier by giving you sort of a visual dashboard. So if you're looking at Palo Alto's platform, for instance, which is incredibly expensive, you basically have a graph system, and you can start to draw and you can start to script what actions occur. So the difference between that and what Blumira offers is that we've already done the work. So you don't have to script, you don't have to create a graph. There's really no work to do other than to enable a radio button that says, do you want the feature on or off, depending on what rule. And so if you have a smaller or leaner team, this is sort of what you'd want, because you don't have time to sit and build and script for these specific scenarios. So that's my take on it. That makes sense.
Awesome, thank you. And Raphael, I've got a question for you. There's an angle that Judy provides that is not part of Blumira, specific to Judy, and I'd love to hear a little bit about the security awareness training.
Yeah, so we know that with cybersecurity insurance or compliance that you still may have to take some training. So Judy has that built in our all-in-one solution, and allows the organization to take that monthly or quarterly training, but in a very easy to use, light, and even depending on if you use animation or corporate videos, a quick way of getting it completed successfully, and being able to report out on that for compliance. So, and then you have that other question that just popped up on our screen. So I don't know if you want me to take it or you wanted that one, Kim. Sorry.
This is great. Well, yeah, sorry, Bill added in the link on SCIM and OIDC. Thank you. And Warren asks about the big red button. Can you expand on what that entails in terms of firewall, security, policies, registry, et cetera?
Sure. So right now, the big red button is agent-based. So essentially, you have Blumira Agent, which is based on Lima Charlie, and we're using that as our detection endpoint. But the way we've built the environment, it's completely extendable. So this is just a start. We also have firewall rule additions that I'd have to talk to our operations team to understand a bit more how those function from an implementation point of view. But I need to dig a little bit more to provide an accurate answer around automatic firewall rule updates. But I know that's a feature that we do offer. And I think there was another question about the difference between Blumira and Judy, and maybe Raphael, if you want to talk about that a bit more.
Yeah, so we partner with Blumira. So Judy has an all-in-one solution. So we do have her AI password manager that is passwordless, single sign-on, MFA, DNS filtering, EDR. We did not want to go build out a SIM tool. And so we partnered with Blumira, who has an amazing tool set. So when you look at Judy on our website, you'll see Judy's blue team. That's Blumira. And so all of Judy's logs from her endpoint DNS, as well as identity management, flows in to Blumira's SIM tool. So for those organizations that have an IT professional, they can now not only get the all-in-one solution from us, but know that they're able to leverage Bloomera's technology for that single pane view in a SIM system. Or if you work with partners, the partners can log in and now see everything in the SIM tool as well. So that's how we work together. We're not competitors, we're partners. And so if you decide to follow with Bloomera, that's fine. If you decide you want to follow up with the Judy team, either way, you'll see both the organizations working together to make sure that you have the right security posture and what you need for your organization, regardless if you're small or medium size.
Awesome. Thank you. And we have another Judy question. Is Judy an IDP that integrates with Azure AD?
Yes, she can integrate with the Azure for any of your identity management, as well as pull down all of the users, so you're not having to import them manually.
Awesome. Well, I want to give everyone 1 or 2 more minutes to toss any last minute questions in. I know we're getting close to time here. And while you're adding in any last minute questions, I'll just thank everybody once again. Raphael, so great to have you here. Bill, it was awesome to have you on the webinar too. Thank you to John Eric, our trusty person kind of in the background. And all of you who've joined us. We know you have a lot of things you can do with your time and really appreciate you spending it here with us. And do we have any final questions? Is anyone gonna type something in there really quickly? I did add in some links there. You've got Bloomera resources on compliance and the differences between SIM, SOC, SOAR, XDR. You'll find other blog posts similar to that, and also the Meet Judy URL, so you can read a little bit more about Judy. Well, I think I think that's a wrap. I want to give each of you an opportunity. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I just say thanks for having us, and it was great. I'm glad that there was an audience to that's interested in both product lines, and we're happy to help however we can.
Awesome.
Yep, I would exactly echo the same sentiment. It's great coming out and actually talking to people. Most of the time I'm coding and working and I'm building detections. So it's great to actually meet people and have conversations.
I love it. Hey, we did have one more come in. What additional features in integrating could we expect from Judy as opposed to SentinelOne, for example?
Well, we have an EDR that can compete with SentinelOne, but we also do have DNS filtering. So all of those logs will feed into the Bloomera tool set, as well as the identity management components and any of the analytical items that are at the endpoint, whether they're OS or browser out of date. There's just some of those, but we can, looks like it's Pete. If you want a demo of both systems, just let Kim know and we can get that coordinated for you and go into a deeper dive since we're at the time.
That would be fantastic. Well, again, thank you, everyone. It's been great to spend this time with you and really appreciate you taking some time. And we look forward to speaking with you again. The recording will be sent out via email in the next 24 to 48 hours. Take good care. Have a great afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.